Every object in the universe has its own unique threshold and breaking point. The frequency range required to surpass that tolerance depends on individual factors specific to the item. Ella Fitzgerald could shatter a wine glass with her incredible singing voice and dynamic pitch. Soldiers circling the ancient city of Jericho were able to crumble its formidable walls and raze it to the ground by blowing their trumpets in unison. Anything can be destroyed by using the precise frequency and vibrations needed to achieve what is known as the obliteration frequency. Using the exact aural range, an object begins to deteriorate at a molecular level. The looming question on many people's minds might be, what practical reason would anyone have to destroy something with focused sound waves? That's an academic quandary better left to philosophers and theologians, right? The important point to this narrative is, a well-funded team of scientists and engineers were investigating the prospects of using projected sound as a superweapon, not just to blast at high volume. That's old-school two-dimensional thinking. They went about cataloging obliteration frequency ranges for common objects. Why? Well, you know the reason. To bring doom and destruction to the enemy. It's always that. In the field of modern warfare, it's important to never look back. Ethics aside, the advantage of any weapon is short-lived. The technology is soon understood and then copied by all. Explosives are a medieval invention. Chemical weapons have been around for over a century. Nuclear power was about to enter the antiquated age of old technology as well. Using targeted sound waves as a focused weapon appeared to be the next big area of focus. I was the bureau chief for a top secret agency and directed my people in weaponry research to do just that. The threat of artificial intelligence misuse and maintaining deep cybersecurity protocols were of paramount importance to us back when we still had separate counties and different laws. Inversely, to breach the nation's security infrastructure and manipulate their network was a key initiative for our division and every other country. With the obliteration ranges for countless things studied and cataloged, my scientists sought to expand our deadly arsenal by identifying the most elusive and vulnerable items to exploit. Despite our deliberate efforts to do just that, even the most jaded bureaucrat in the world like me didn't expect what they discovered. When presented with their initial report, I didn't believe what I read. It was genuinely terrifying. Worse than that, there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. I greenlit the team's research budget and gave them the authority for self-autonomy. After implying the sky was the limit on whatever space-age pipe dreams they developed, it was too late for me to demand that they pull back on the creative reins. The damn fools had isolated the obliteration frequency for the Earth itself. In their burning quest to develop the most powerful weapons possible to use against potential threats and enemies abroad, they had stumbled upon the precise recipe to destroy the entire planet. I didn't think I needed to specify that any technology which blew up our mutual home would be pointless and overkill. Apparently, greater articulation was necessary with my engineering eggheads, but it couldn't be undone. They couldn't exactly pretend to not know what they had discovered. It had to be presented to the War Council. But on what occasion could this newly developed research be used? It was an absolute doomsday scenario to initiate and carry out. There was no practical use for it whatsoever. No one wins if everyone loses. I said as much in my follow-up report to the team, but was given a surprisingly pragmatic response to my critical feedback. One of the lead designers of the technology deadpanned. In the event the Earth is ever invaded by hostile extraterrestrials, It's important to prevent the world from being taken over. Are you saying you'd destroy the entire planet just to keep another species from taking over? I asked, incredulously. I could hardly believe my ears at the time. It seemed preposterous to think that way. Then, the more I considered his glib response, the more I realized it wasn't such an outrageous position to hold at all. Why should we, as the dominant species, care what happened to our planet if we were eliminated? As selfish as it might have been from a philosophical point of view, we weren't about to share our Earth with aliens who dared to invade it and kill us. They would possibly wipe out other species as well. With that blasé, human-centric mindset, I forwarded the report up the chain of command. In the zeal to prepare for whatever contingencies arose, it was just one more theoretical weaponry brief to be added to the Defense Department's collection of endless records. I never expected it to be considered or utilized. Who would? I assumed it would be skimmed by top brass for a strategic plausibility and then squirreled away in a row of filing cabinets. It, along with thousands of other hypothetical scenario reports at the Pentagon, would never be scrutinized by human eyes again. I was wrong about that, as you'll soon come to realize. About 6 years later, they came. There was no ambiguity about their intentions. We fought them together as a unified world with conventional military weapons, but they only had a superficial effect. Then several of superpower partners unveiled their top secret cache of unconventional weapons. They were technologically impressive. We were secretly relieved they weren't ever used on our country before the International Alliance. Sadly, they too had little effect on the invading aliens. A secret meeting was held between the cabal of nations that hadn't fallen yet. The assessment for the future was beyond bleak. At the current rate of unit casualties, the global security forces predicted the end of humanity would happen in less than 2 weeks. Someone at the very top elected to reveal the doomsday obliteration plan we had developed years earlier. I had no official knowledge of it being bandied about, mind you, but I feared in the back of my mind it might be coming. We had reached the end of all survivable forms of warfare. It was time. Most forms of communication had been destroyed in their effort to isolate us. Major cities were in ruin. Corpses littered the streets. Our food and clean drinking water sources had been strategically poisoned. In the savage, merciless way they executed people without exception or pity, drew out our fiercest retaliatory anger. Having our backs up against the wall motivated us like nothing else could. Despite our chances of survival rapidly circling the drain, we weren't about to adopt orderly disposal and wish them well. The official decision was eventually made to implement the Omega Frequency protocol. Our situation had deteriorated to full thermonuclear war, without the actual nuclear warheads. Once the OFP was enacted, the lingering hope was to destroy every single one of them, in the process of obliterating ourselves and planet Earth. I felt the initial vibration that morning. It was somewhat subtle at first, but exponentially grew in sonic intensity. By then, I knew what was coming, but feeling the precise frequency of doom shook me to the very core. Far more than the actual vibration itself was the emotional impact of knowing. Feeling the end approaching was both terrifying and strangely soothing. If they didn't win, then by delusional extension, we wouldn't lose. I smiled bitterly and prepared for the moment when everything would disintegrate. The very roots of my teeth began to rattle and hum from the potent tone. Then my inner eardrums popped and ached. Cracks appeared in the concrete. A low rumble in the core of the earth radiated upward to the embattled surface. Remembering the scientific details from years earlier, I knew we were approaching a critical juncture where the focus of the frequency would reach its breaking point. In this case, the very planet beneath our feet. It wouldn't be much longer. Without explanation, the obliteration frequency stopped. For the briefest of moments, I wondered if life had ended and I was hallucinating, or if they had intercepted our subsonic kamikaze broadcast. I was filled with seething rage at being denied final revenge. The gnawing numbness of wanting all terrestrial life destroyed, but realizing I was still alive, was impossible to describe. The selfish part of me was grateful for the brief, unexplained reprieve, but my primal instinct to survive was outweighed by the far greater concerns looming in the air. Had they prevented the OFP from ruining their invasion and takeover of the planet? Or had humanity ended the countdown to extinction for some reason? That was the question, but no one outside the inner sanctum of government decision-makers knew the answer to it. That is, until the official record was declassified and revealed to the exhausted public. According to the statements circulated worldwide through the remaining communications grid, their attack stopped because of a secret weapon we'd utilized against them. Their unrelenting bombardment of the surface ceased as a direct result of this advanced tool. There was no mention of the severe downside of completing the last-ditch maneuver, or it being a freaking doomsday device which would have completely destroyed the Earth. For morale-raising reasons, that was widely omitted. I had to smile at the discreet employment of spin, patriotic propaganda in the press release. The majority of the people had no idea how close we came to becoming lifeless dust in the cold expanse of space. I think humanity was just so happy to escape extinction, they didn't bother asking details or how. The massive alien vessels reportedly left before the critical obliteration point was reached. We spooked them. They were observed leaving the solar system via our observatory sources and hightailing it away. Hopefully they'll return to wherever they came from and stay there, but I wouldn't count on it. I guess we called their bluff for the moment. Regardless, they'll be back at some point for round 2. You can count on that. Boy, am I glad I filed that weapons brief with the Department of Defense, despite the misgivings I had at the time. The eggheads saved our asses. We'd better get to work on developing more advanced technology for when they return. Maybe we can isolate their own unique frequency and target their species, specifically. That would be infinitely smarter than throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We gotta fight smarter. Drastic threats and poker bluffs only work once.